This is the FFA Officers portion of the Intro to FFA unit. And this is everything that you need to know about the FFA officers that are basically in charge of the chapter. The first one we're going to start with is the president. So each officer has a station that they are stationed by, and this is mostly important when we're doing opening and closing ceremony. But the president is stationed by the rising sun, and they do exactly what you would think a president would do. They preside over their meetings according to parliamentary procedure. We don't really use parliamentary procedure at Clayton High School, but really it's the way we should be doing things. We'll talk more about parliamentary procedure in our next lesson. The president also appoints different committees and will also serve on them as an ex officio or a non-voting member. They coordinate the activities of the chapter along with the rest of their officer team, and they also evaluate the progress of each part of the POA. And they also represent the chapter in any public relation or official functions. The next officer we're going to talk about is the vice president, and believe it or not, they're probably the busiest person on the officer team. They are stationed by the plow. They call the roll of officers, so if you watch the video on opening and closing ceremony that I've included, you will see that the vice president is actually the one in charge of calling the roll of everyone. They coordinate all committee work, and in the event that the president is absent, the vice president would take over any presidential duties as well. They also help to develop the program activities and serve on them as a non-voting member, very similar to the president. And they work very closely with the president and the advisor just to make sure that we're moving forward on the POA and we're meeting our chapter goals. The next officer we're going to talk about is the secretary. The secretary is stationed by the ear of corn. You'll find that corn is a very big symbol in FFA. The main reason for that is because corn is grown in all 50 states, so it's really a symbol of unity across all of FFA, basically. So the secretary, prior to the meeting, will actually prepare the agenda for each meeting, and they will also prepare the minutes of each chapter meeting, and they will present those minutes at the beginning of the meeting that follows the meeting that they have the minutes for. So they'll take the minutes, basically taking notes is all they do. They'll take the minutes of the meeting, and then they will present those at the next meeting and say, at the last meeting we talked about whatever. And they'll also put all of the committee reports in the official FFA chapter secretary's book. We do actually have an official book at Clayton, believe it or not, but most of the stuff that we do nowadays is all online. So all of our minutes are kept online on Google Drive. Our next officer is the treasurer, and easiest way to remember this one is they're a treasurer. They're in charge of the treasure or money in this situation. They are stationed by the emblem of George Washington, and they are literally in charge of money. They receive, record, and deposit FFA funds. They can issue receipts. Unfortunately, at Johnston County, we can't give a student a receipt book to work with money, but in theory, they would do that. They collect any dues, special assessments. They're really in charge of fundraising, and if they were in charge of money, they would present the monthly treasurer report at the meetings. Our next officer is the reporter. They're stationed by the American flag. The whole point of that is because they are supposed to cover FFA just as the flag covers the United States. So they release any news and information to local news. Here at Clayton, that's really mainly to Mr. Jones and our media center people, so they can put it on the website and Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. And they also plan any information programs with local radio, TV, newspaper. They also coordinate with other clubs and service clubs, and just really try and make use of any opportunity they have to let people know about what's going on in FFA. Our next officer is the sentinel. They're stationed by the door, and the best way to remember the sentinel is that they are the glorified greeting committee. They welcome members and guests. They assist the president in maintaining order And they also keep the meeting room, any chapter equipment like our paraphernalia, and any other supplies in proper condition. They make sure that everything is well cared for. And they also keep the meeting room comfortable. And yes, this literally means that if you're too cold, you go to the Sentinel and you say, "It's cold in here, can you please turn the heat up?" The next one we're going to talk about is the historian. They are stationed at the scroll, and they develop and maintain a scrapbook of memorabilia, basically just making sure that the history of the chapter is kept for the year. They research and prepare any items of significance in our chapter's history. Last year we actually, at our banquet, had the advisor that chartered our chapter. He actually came, which was really cool to see him. And he was really excited and was able to see how the chapter has grown, but we gave all of the materials that he brought us, like our original charter, to our historian at the time to keep. And they also prepare and any displays of chapter activities, taking pictures, all that good stuff. And really our historian's biggest project for the year at Clayton is presenting and preparing the video for the end of the year banquet that we show with all the pictures. It's basically a slideshow, but with music and all that stuff. It's really cool. Everyone loves it. That's really our historian's biggest impact at Clayton. All right, the parliamentarian. So this one's kind of fun. So in theory, if we use parliamentary procedure at Clayton High School, the parliamentarian would be in charge of making sure that parliamentary procedure is followed. So they're stationed at a copy of Robert's Rules of Order, and Robert's Rules of Order is a book that is all about parliamentary procedure. If you're really bored sometime, can't go to sleep or whatever, pick up Robert's Rules of Order and read it. You'll be asleep in no time, I promise. And we'll talk more about Robert's Rules of Order when we talk about parliamentary procedure specifically, but the parliamentarian really has to know Parley Pro forwards and backwards. They rule on any questions of parliamentary conduct at chapter meetings, so if there's ever a question of, hey, this person didn't do this motion right, the parliamentarian would rule on that. They also assist the president in establishing committees. And the reason why I say parliamentarian is kind of fun is because if someone does make a parliamentary mistake, the parliamentarian literally has to call them out on it. So if you're really good at pointing people out for doing things wrong, parliamentarian, good way to go. The next one we're going to talk about is the chaplain. They are stationed either by the dove or by the book. They'll say the prayer at FFA meetings, which we don't do here at Clayton, but we do say a prayer at banquet. They also help the Sentinel meet and greet members and guests, and they conduct reflections at summer camps and conferences. Like when we do our officer retreat, the chaplain will be in charge of running those reflection times. Reflections at FFA camp here in North Carolina are run by the camp counselors. The last one we're going to talk about is the advisor. They are stationed by the OWL, and this is the person that supervises chapter activities year-round. So here at Clayton, for us, it would be me and Mr. Manzer. We are the advisors. Really, our job is to inform prospective students and parents about FFA. So at 8th grade night, we try and recruit students into our program. Another part of our job is doing exactly what we're doing right now, instructing students in leadership and personal development, so instructing students in the classroom as well as out of the classroom. Build school and community support for the program, so it is actually our job to go to Mr. Jones and say, hey, we could really use some help doing this, and to really communicate with people both at school and in the community about what we're doing in the chapter, and really try and bolster support for our program. We also are to encourage involvement of all chapter members in activities. So when we go up to somebody and we say, hey, by the way, you're competing in this CDE tomorrow, hope you're ready, that's really what we're doing, is we're encouraging involvement, but we're encouraging involvement from the standpoint of we're going to tell you that you're doing something. We only do that to people we know we can do that to. And we also prepare students for involvement in contests and awards programs. So any CDE practices, we run those. We teach you how to go and perform in those certain career development events like livestock judging or horse judging. We teach you how to judge a cow and how to judge a horse. These are our Clayton FFA officers. Our president is Hope Barber. Our vice president is Lauren Satkowiak. Our secretary is Gabby Ketchy. Our student advisor is Michael Ellison. Our treasurer is Reagan Martin. Our reporter is Madison Knipe. Our sentinel is Jacob Scott. Our chaplain is Landon Draper. Our historian is Lauren Petro. Our parliamentarian is Sophie Satkowiak. And our senior coordinator is Aiden Neer. Aiden really has helped us out quite a bit. So we kind of created an officer position for him. He was in here over the summer helping us. Mr. Manzer had to move over the summer and everything else. So he was in here really helping us out. So we put him in an officer position. If there's any questions, please feel free to email me or come see me, and we can get those worked out. Thanks for watching.